Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Insider 24 update channel. Tessa contemplates whether her marriage is over. www.soapcentral.com. On the episode of The Young and the Restless that aired on Monday, October 27th, Tessa's dream of kissing Daniel took a disturbing turn. Kane told Lily about the AI theft, and Phyllis and Danny lectured Daniel. Asleep in a hotel suite, Tessa dreamed about kissing Daniel passionately. He asked if she was sure, and she replied that they'd talked enough. They resumed kissing and fell onto the bed. Tessa was asked to open the door when a police officer knocked. A half-dressed Tessa opened the door, and the officer announced that she was there to arrest Mariah for attempted murder. In bed, Tessa suddenly jumped up. Daniel entered crimson lights wearing sunglasses and plopped down in a chair on the patio. Phyllis walked in and teased him for pretending to be his rockstar dad, avoiding autographs or pictures. Because he looked so bad, she took off his sunglasses and assumed he'd had a rough night. Phyllis flatly asked why Daniel had gotten drunk, and she assumed it was about Boston. Phyllis assumed that Daniel had gotten wasted alone, but he denied it. After she had left, she inquired as to whether he had attended his father's sorry excuse for a bachelor party. Phyllis predicted that the marriage wouldn't last past Christmas as Danny strolled in. After Tessa's trip to Boston didn't go as planned, Daniel admitted that he and Tessa had tried to relax. Daniel confirmed that things had gotten a little out of hand. Phyllis demanded to know how far things had gone. Danny insisted that they didn't need details, but he imagined that Tessa had been upset. Daniel explained that he'd tried to get Tessa food and help her pace herself, but they'd indulged in a lot of wine and whiskey. Phyllis respected Daniel for supporting Tessa as a friend, but she clucked that the situation wasn't cut and dry for his heart. Daniel insisted that nothing else had happened. Phyllis wondered if his heart was hungover, too. Phyllis scoffed at Danny's obvious surprise that Daniel had told her about his emotions. Daniel clarified that his mother had tricked him into revealing his feelings for Tessa. Danny and Phyllis bickered, and he guessed that she'd been nosy and judgmental when Daniel had confessed his feelings. Phyllis recalled that she'd told Daniel not to go after Tessa, but he hadn't listened, and he was flirting with disaster. Danny swore that he and Phyllis just wanted to know if Daniel was okay. Daniel stepped aside to take a call from Tessa, and he expressed relief that she'd just rescued him from the Titanic. Tessa worried that she was the iceberg he'd hit, but he assured her she wasn't. She joked that she'd been hit by a truck, and he replied that the same truck had hit him. Tessa invited Daniel to have breakfast in her. She wasn't ready to face the world. Daniel curtly told his parents he was leaving. Phyllis lamented that Daniel's heart was broken after losing Heather, and she was concerned about the extent to which he could bear before his heart was never again reconnected. Danny reasoned that maybe Tessa seemed safe for Daniel, who could care for her without feeling like he was betraying Heather. Danny encouraged Phyllis to give Daniel space, and he turned the topic to how things were with her new boss. Phyllis avoided the question by asking about his wedding plans. Danny thought Phyllis could also find happiness if she stopped trying to attack his relationship with Christine. Phyllis anxiously checked her phone, and Danny asked if she was waiting to hear from someone. She mused that he had his destiny, and she had hers, and hers would be amazing. Danny's assumption that Phyllis was expecting to hear from a love interest shocked her. She complained that some women wanted to live a full life without a man in charge, but he responded that not everyone was opposed to having someone there to ground them and prevent rash decisions. Phyllis insisted that she knew what she was doing, and she would be fine, but anyone who got in her way wouldn't be. Victor sent Phyllis a text message requesting that she visit the ranch. Danny peered over her shoulder and was horrified to see that Victor was part of her destiny. He asked what she'd gotten herself into. Daniel arrived at Tessa's suite with coffee. Tessa noted that he looked terrible, and she mentioned that she'd ordered room service. She moaned that she was a mess, not just from drinking alcohol, and she was. If Daniel wanted to leave, she understood. He inquired whether she had ordered hash browns. Over breakfast, Tessa acknowledged that she and Daniel didn't have to talk about what had happened, but they had no one else to confide in. Daniel shuddered at the thought of telling the full story to his parents. Tessa asked if he thought their kiss had been a mistake, but they agreed that neither of them felt that way. Tessa told him about her dream, describing it as intense. Tessa wasn't sure what the dream meant, but she sensed that Mariah was in real trouble. Considering that some guy had just told Tessa how much he cared about her, Daniel put the dream down to being drunk and confused. Tessa was aware that Daniel and she shared a connection that was important to them both, but she refused to label what they shared. Daniel called it a life raft for him, but he accepted that it couldn't go beyond that. "Not while I'm married," Tessa replied. She confided that during her visit with Mariah in Boston, she'd wondered if it was the end for them. At the Genoa City Athletic Club, Chelsea asked if Connor had told Adam about his Halloween plans. After his anxiety had kept him stuck in routines, she was amazed that their son finally liked to do things and go places. Kane interrupted and mentioned that Victor hadn't been returning his calls. Adam snapped that his father didn't owe Kane a conversation, and no one in town would give Kane the chance to suck up their time again. Adam advised Kane to locate an additional well after adding that the well had run dry. Kane recalled that Adam had stuck around after Restless Style had done several hit pieces on him, and he hoped to live up to the example Adam had set. Kane had no friends or family and could run his business anywhere in the world, in contrast to Adam's argument that he had people there who meant the world to him. Kane countered that Adam had tanked his credibility, so Kane might as well stay there. Lily joined Kane, and they stepped away to another table. Adam hoped Lily didn't give Kane a reason to stay. Chelsea wondered if perhaps Lily thought Kane had turned a corner and no longer wanted to blow up the world. Chelsea excitedly divulged that Connor wanted to throw a last-minute Halloween party for his friends at the ranch. Adam remembered that Connor had hosted a party with his teammates over the summer, and Chelsea was taken aback that Adam didn't think Connor's desire to socialize was a big deal. Chelsea proclaimed that she was proud and relieved every day that Connor's symptoms were under control, and she wanted to jump up and down and cheer. Adam raised his coffee cup and toasted to their son. Chelsea asked Adam if Connor seemed reserved when he talked about his new therapist. Adam reported that Connor had said he wasn't sure about the guy, but he thought that made sense because Dr. Evans had accomplished a lot with Connor. Chelsea was disappointed that Connor's prior therapist had moved away. Adam expected that it would take them all some time to get used to the new doctor. Chelsea worried about what would happen if they didn't. Chelsea believed Connor was in a good place because his former therapist had been a good fit, and she thought it was important that Connor at least liked the person treating him. Adam thought it was enough reason to find someone else, and he suggested they tell the new doctor not to implement any changes that could cause a setback. Chelsea was glad she and Adam had talked about it as a team, and he declared that they were the specialists where their son was involved. Across the room, Kane hoped he and Lily could start with small talk and eventually move beyond it, but she insisted that they deal with the AI program first. He informed her that his system had been hacked, and the program was gone. Lily testily stated that the program had been the one way to get her to trust Kane, and they had nothing to talk about otherwise. He begged her to stay, but she spat that she was done with him, making her feel like an idiot because he failed every time she let her guard down. Kane offered to show Lily the tech report, and he explained that there was no upside for him to hide the program away. Kane regretted that his firewalls hadn't been enough, and he gave his word that he'd intended to honor his promise to give the program to her. Kane said that he knew who was behind it, but he hesitated to name anyone. He was wasting her time by not telling her anything, which irritated Lily. Kane insisted that Lily was the only person he could trust, and she implored him to give her a reason to trust him. Kane suspected either Phyllis or Victor was behind the theft, but Lily was confused about why Phyllis would double-cross him. Kane conceded that Phyllis had been loyal when there was something in it for her, but he'd since changed his plan to focus on restoring his reputation, while she still wanted to conquer the world. Lily scolded that Kane had created a dangerous weapon that he couldn't control, and whatever happened was on him. Kane vowed to fix things. He intended to focus on Phyllis, who had nothing but wanted everything, whereas Victor's wrath was concentrated on one man. Lily advised him to prepare for the worst because Phyllis wouldn't waste her shot. Kane pledged to get the program back, so he and Lily could destroy it together. She warned them that time was against them and everyone they cared about, anticipating that the thief would be 3 steps ahead of him. In the October 27th episode of The Young and the Restless, Tessa finds herself standing at an emotional precipice, questioning the very foundation of her marriage to Mariah. The episode opens with a striking dream sequence that encapsulates her subconscious turmoil, In the haze of sleep, Tessa imagines herself in a passionate embrace with Daniel. The dream is not merely a random fantasy, it is a vivid expression of her internal conflict, one that juxtaposes passion, guilt, and the fear of betrayal. When the dream abruptly turns into a nightmare, with a police officer arriving to arrest Mariah for attempted murder, Tessa's psyche exposes its deepest fears. The dream fuses desire and dread, reminding her that her emotional straying could have devastating consequences. It is symbolic of her guilt and uncertainty, suggesting that part of her already suspects her marriage may be faltering, while another part of her clings desperately to the hope that it is not. When Tessa wakes up from the dream, the emotional residue of it lingers, coloring her interactions with Daniel later in the episode. Her decision to invite him to breakfast, despite their blurry night of alcohol and confessions, demonstrates that she is seeking comfort in him not merely as a friend, but as someone who mirrors her own vulnerability. Their shared hangover becomes a metaphor for emotional intoxication. Both characters are suffering from the effects of feelings they cannot easily explain or dismiss. When Daniel arrives, coffee in hand, the awkwardness between them is palpable but not hostile. They are bound by an unspoken understanding that something significant has passed between them, something that cannot easily be undone. Tessa's confession that she feels like a mess captures more than just physical fatigue, it is the raw truth of her emotional disarray. Her inhibitions were only lowered by the alcohol, but her confusion in Daniel's presence is much deeper because her marriage no longer feels as stable or nourishing. The episode's emotional center is their breakfast conversation, during which Tessa's doubts about her marriage to Mariah become clear. Tessa's expression of mixed relief and guilt as Daniel assures her that he does not regret their kiss reveals a woman torn between honesty and fidelity. She refuses to label what they share, insisting instead that it is a connection that matters. In that moment, the show delicately demonstrates the complexity of emotional intimacy, demonstrating how two people can find solace in one another's presence without necessarily crossing physical boundaries, yet still betray the emotional loyalty owed to another partner. Daniel's admission that their bond feels like a life raft underscores the loneliness both characters are drowning in, even while surrounded by family and history. But Tessa's quiet reply, "Not while I'm married," lands with the weight of resignation. It is not a declaration of commitment but a confession of constraint. Her words betray the reality that her marriage exists more as a moral boundary than as an emotional refuge. Tessa's recollection of her trip to Boston with Mariah deepens the portrait of a marriage in quiet decline. Her admission that she wondered whether it was the end for them transforms the episode from a mere tale of temptation into a study of disconnection. The Boston trip, meant to rekindle or reaffirm her relationship, has instead exposed its fragility. The distance between Tessa and Mariah is not physical but emotional, a slow unraveling that neither of them seems fully able to stop. In soap opera tradition, such doubts often precede dramatic betrayal or reconciliation, but The Young and the Restless plays this moment with subtlety. Tessa's uncertainty is not born of malice or boredom, it comes from exhaustion. She feels trapped in the role of a devoted partner while quietly starving for connection. Her dream about Mariah's arrest, seen through this lens, may symbolize the guilt of abandoning a partner emotionally, a subconscious punishment for allowing herself to desire another person. The parallel storyline involving Daniel and his parents, Phyllis and Danny, amplifies the emotional tension surrounding Tessa's dilemma. Daniel's interactions with his mother reveal that his feelings for Tessa are not fleeting or purely circumstantial. Phyllis's sharp intuition and intrusive questioning expose Daniel's conflicted heart. When she accuses him of flirting with disaster, the phrase applies as much to Tessa as it does to her son. Both are playing with their emotions and looking for a way to get away from their pain by finding solace in one another. Daniel's motherly interrogation also adds another layer to the theme of generational emotional cycles, how unresolved heartbreak and impulsivity echo from parent to child. Being loved by Daniel provides Tessa with a dangerous form of validation. It reminds her that she is still desirable, still capable of evoking deep feeling in someone, even as her marriage stagnates. But that very validation is also corrosive, making it harder for her to confront what's missing in her marriage without clinging to the illusion of something new. Throughout the episode, Tessa's moral clarity fluctuates. She knows that crossing further lines with Daniel would be a betrayal, yet she also senses that denying their connection entirely would be dishonest. Her emotional compass is clouded by longing and loneliness, two forces that have undone countless young and restless couples before her. When she describes her dream to Daniel and admits that it felt intense, it becomes clear that her subconscious has already begun rehearsing the consequences of her choices. The dream acts as both a warning and a confession, a dramatization of the guilt that would follow should she betray Mariah in reality. Daniel's pragmatic response, blaming the dream on confusion and alcohol, only reinforces the divide between their emotional truths. Daniel's turmoil is based on circumstances, whereas Tessa's is spiritual. While he tends to the wounds of his own failed relationships, she is questioning her wifely identity. By the episode's end, Tessa is left suspended in ambiguity, caught between duty and desire. Her marriage to Mariah remains intact in form but fractured in essence. The audience is left to ponder whether love can survive once its emotional core begins to erode. Tessa's situation embodies the painful truth that relationships often die long before they officially end. The show's writers use Tessa's storyline not just to create romantic tension but to explore the broader theme of emotional authenticity. How much of oneself can one give to another before becoming unfaithful to one's own heart? Tessa's hesitation, her dreams, and her lingering glances at Daniel suggest that she is beginning to confront that question, even if she is not yet ready to answer it. What makes this episode particularly resonant is how it weaves Tessa's internal crisis into the wider tapestry of Genoa City's ongoing dramas. Amid Kane's confessions, Phyllis's schemes, and Chelsea's parental worries, Tessa's quiet despair feels strikingly human. Unlike the overt power plays and betrayals that define other storylines, hers is an intimate war fought in silence. Her arc has a haunting poignancy due to the emotional realism of her conflict, which is the fear of hurting someone she loves while also knowing that love may already be gone. Her decision not to act on her feelings for Daniel, for now, does not resolve her turmoil. It merely delays the inevitable reckoning that awaits her, either to rebuild what's broken in her marriage or to face the painful truth that it's already over. In the end, The Young and the Restless presents Tessa not as a villain or a victim but as a woman awakening to emotional reality. Her dreams, her confessions, and her restraint all point to a character on the verge of transformation. Whether that transformation leads her back to Mariah or forward toward something or someone new remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, Tessa's contemplation of whether her marriage is over marks a turning point not only in her storyline but in her understanding of love itself, a recognition that sometimes, the hardest part of staying true is admitting when the heart has already moved on.